Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 107.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
Okay, and welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here because here's what I know. I know that as you continually invest your time, your ears, your attention into listening and learning, our goal is to give you one new idea with each and every episode. And who knows, maybe by now you've gotten many new ideas that you've been able to take action on. And I'm going to guess that today's episode is going to be absolutely no different. More importantly, it's going to give you some actionable steps that you could do today to begin building your cash flow in a completely different way than we've talked about in the past. Now, for those of you joining us for the first time, you know that, hey, I like real estate, and real estate is, in my opinion, it's where it is at for so many reasons. It's a great place to start, but it doesn't mean you have to stay there. If you're looking to get started into real estate investing and you're wondering what are some of the basic things that I need to know about real estate or business, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go over to Learn Investing Now. Again, that's learninvestingnow.com. And when you get over there, just put in your details, email, you know the drill, so that we can begin giving you some clear, concise lessons on what I believe you need to know so that you can learn investing now. Okay, that's really what's going to happen for you. And when you go over to learninvestingnow.com, my goal is to educate you because I truly believe that if I can give you that one new idea, be that email, be that audio, be that video, however you get it, if you go out there and take new action, you'll have new results. So today, we have a very special individual, in my opinion, because he does something that sometimes you may not consider as a way or a viable way of going out there to do business. But what's interesting is that we all do very similar things. So yeah, I tend to buy real estate that's existing construction, that's not functioning well. And what's interesting about this individual is that he has the ability to help connect you, not necessarily with existing construction, but an existing business. So an existing concept. You've already got proof of concept. You've already got a number of things going for you so that you are able to go in, apply your ideas, create some value, and most importantly, continue to serve an excellent customer. So have you thought about the idea of just buying a business instead of starting from scratch? Because if you're like me, I know this was one of the reasons I choose to do real estate. I learned a long time ago that I'm not smart enough to invent stuff. So I just said, hey, how about this? I go do real estate. And because no one needs to be, I don't have to invent something new. I don't have to do that. Now, there are some people, they belong as inventors. I'm just not one of them. But what's interesting is that there are individuals out there who are able to help you and I connect with that proper business that helps us to do and build our own cash flow. What I'm excited about this particular individual is that he's got something that I think I understand what it is, but I'm not 100% sure. And if you're looking for a business to buy, you're going to hear me question him deeply about some of these ideas because, hey, wouldn't it be a great birthday gift for your kid to buy them a business and say, hey, here you go. Now go forth and take over the world. That way you have to go out there and help them. Instead of giving them money, give them a business. I'm excited about this concept, this idea. And I want to hear about what he calls a micro private equity fund, which to me, it just sounds awesome. Don't really know much about it, but we're going to learn together. So let's listen to Mr. Ace Chapman. Ace, are you there?
I am here. Glad to be with you, Jay.
I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're taking the time investing here with the Cashflow Diary audience because, you know, at the end of the day, we're about cash flow here. And I know I've heard it said many times that cash flow is the lifeblood of any business.
Absolutely.
Now, with that, though, before you've got a great name, Ace Chapman. Everybody wishes their name was Ace, by the way. Secretly, let me just get that out there. I'm sure everyone's already saying to themselves, man, why my name's not Ace? That's what I need to be. If my name was Ace, I'd be successful.
The first step.
Yeah, that's it. Right. That's the first step. But before, and here's what I really want to know. I look at today's entrepreneurs, and I think they're, like yesterday's superheroes. When you think of Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Robin and all these people that we consider to be great that now have movies and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I look at today's entrepreneurs the same way. Now, each one of them have a beginning, or what they call an origin story. So what I'd love to know is, before Ace Chapman was Ace Chapman, who was Ace Chapman?
Well, coming up, I've felt the same way that most people do about business ownership. And that's that in order to be an entrepreneur, you've got to start from scratch. And I love starting businesses from scratch. Actually, my very first business was I ended up selling my kindergarten school photos to people at church. So
Nice.
my mom had given me some $20, which is just an ungodly amount of money because of the amount of candy that you can buy with $20 when you're 5 years old, and sent me to pay for my school pictures. And I took them to church, and she started giving them out, and I'm like, why are you giving these pictures out for free? We gotta sell them. And after pitching a fit, she let me try to sell them. And so my first business was selling little pictures of myself for 25 cents and 50 cents. Unfortunately, I'm not that cute anymore, so I've had to step my game up over the years.
Yes, I'm like, okay, so I just scratched off one business idea for myself, because I don't think that's going to work for me either.
No, I can't pull it off anymore. Not even for 25 cents.
Yeah, I know, right? So what else? So how did the story develop? What continues after that?
Over the years, I would from a young age, I was interested in business. And it was actually, everything transitioned in college. I went to school upstate New York, and I really was in love with the stock market and how it worked. And I was a part of the stock market simulator that allowed you to basically play money into the real stock market and see how your investment strategy would play out. And this is in the early days of the internet. I mean, like 98, 99. And so I've noticed that a lot of other people were complaining about just the servers would go down, and the owners of the company would never reply to messages. And kind of out of frustration more than anything else, I sent an email and basically said, do you guys want to sell this thing? And it turns out they were a web development firm out of Georgia. And it was just a side project for them. It wasn't anything that they were really focused on or excited about. And so they agreed to sell it to me for $70,000. And at that point, I had about $3,000 saved up for from the summer, cutting grass and that kind of thing. But I decided to say, okay, let's see if we can get this done.
Nice.
And so it kind of started from there. Especially, at that point, it would have been called an LBO, but for me, it was just, I don't have money. How can I buy this thing? So my first step was to negotiate some seller financing. Like, hey, what about if I just pay you guys over a certain period of time for 50% of this, and then I'll come up with the other 50%, which was still a long ways for a college kid to go. And I ended up finding a buddy of mine that had some savings and loved what the site's potential was. And so he put in some equity. And then for the remaining amount, I went and got a credit card. And, basically bought my very first business.
Nice. Now, just so that we can back up to make sure that we have, no person left behind, so to speak, take a second and describe. I think I know what you mean, but I want to make sure that everyone knows what you mean when you say LBO.
Yeah. So LBO is a leveraged buyout. And in real estate, we're really used to that. You want to go out, you want to put a small down payment and get a mortgage. In business, it's a little more complicated than that. So you have to put together different layers of financing. And the term that they use for that is basically a leverage buyout.
Now, okay, excellent. Thank you. Now, one of the things that I'm thinking of, because I hear this all the time, and I'm sure you do too, to various forms, is where do you have the audacity to approach someone and, more importantly, say, yes, you only have $3,000. They're asking 70, because I hear it all the time. It comes in the form of, Jay, I don't have the money, so I can't write an offer for this property, but yet you didn't let what you didn't have stop you. So talk to me a little bit about that.
It was a combination of three things. Number one was, hey, if I can't come up with the money, the worst that can happen is I don't buy it. They didn't ask for a deposit or anything. So that was cool. I didn't even realize that was something that they should have asked for. So I had that benefit. Number two was just I really, really wanted it. And I think that's a lot of what's in life. I mean, when you really want something, it's just, man, I really want this. I'm going to keep going until there's a wall that I just cannot break through. And saying yes in that moment was a wall that I could break through. And then the last thing was I was curious to try to pull it together, because I felt like, man, if I could get ownership of this thing, maybe this will be something that will change my life. And just figuring this out, what a great story. And I was kind of envisioning what it was going to be like once I got this thing. And so it actually made it fairly easy in that moment for me to say yes and then start hustling, trying to figure out how can I pull this deal together.
Absolutely. Now, and just so that I'm clear and so that everyone else is clear, it wasn't about, and here's the mindset I hear that you managed to maintain or obtain really quickly, is you went from, it wasn't about what you had or didn't have, and it wasn't even necessarily even about your own experience in that particular industry as much as it was about, here's a problem that I see in the marketplace. Here's what this business has the ability to do. And here's how you could participate, Mr. Investor, should you choose to use your capital in this way. And then you got Mr. Visa or MasterCard to participate in the remainder of the way, and you are off and running. That's what I'm hearing.
Exactly, which the Visa and MasterCard thing was actually a secret from my parents at that point. They would have killed me.
But that's interesting.
It absolutely was.
Yeah, you said your parents would have killed you. Why is that?
Oh, they would have thought it was an absolute pipe dream. Like, what are you doing? You don't know anything about running this business, while you're that's probably one of the great things about being young and not, and just being willing to take risks, not kind of walking in fear, walking kind of in bold faith. And so, they absolutely, just out of protection, I think most people have experienced that. If you're an entrepreneur with family and that kind of thing, when you talk about making bold moves, and your parents and your family and your loved ones and wife, and they just want to protect you and don't want to see you fail, don't want to see you hurt or any of that. So just so I didn't stress them out, I kept it a secret for them.
Interesting. Well, clearly it's not a secret any longer. So I think it's very interesting that you bring this up, and it's funny to me how common this comes up as I'm talking to other entrepreneurs, where those that are closest to us are often and can be some of the very same ones that are saying, don't go down the very road that we were designed to go down. And occasionally, if we choose to listen to them, as opposed to that inner voice inside ourselves, we don't actually end up stepping into the greatness that we were born to be. So I want to know how that conversation went the day you said, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, guess what? Here's what happened.
So I'll tell you about an even tougher conversation, because that's when it really came up. I actually was able to start making money with the business. It was making money at that point. And so I got the credit cards paid off. And so there wasn't any pressure for me to tell them about that. But the business ended up growing. And the other thing you got to think about at this point is the internet is new, you know?
Right.
So the tougher conversation was the business grew. When I bought it, it had about 10,000 members. It grew to 250,000 members in 70 countries. And it was too big for me to run from school. And I had investors that were interested in investing and kind of growing it to another level. But they basically said, we're not going to do it if you're in school. And so that was the tough conversation.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a full ride to a great university, Colgate University, and you know, I'm going to my parents and telling them, you know, well, I'm really thinking about leaving school, and most of their questions were just around what is this thing on the internet? Because I knew they didn't know. They knew that I was doing some stuff and I was making some money, but they didn't understand what it was. And so I'm sitting down, I'm trying to explain the business and going into these complex things, and I can tell their eyes are just glazing over. And then my dad's like, so how much money are you making from this thing?
Uh-oh.
And at that point, that month, we had just gotten a check at DoubleClick, which you don't even see anymore, but we had just gotten a check from DoubleClick for a little over $20,000. And I said, well, I've got a check that I just got in. It's for $20,000. He was like, is that real money? Like, or is this some kind of internet money?
Oh, God. That's awesome.
So he's like, well, that's not a real check. Like, you know, I'm showing him the check, and it's like, this isn't real. He's like, all right, in the morning, we're going down to the bank, and I want them to verify that this is real. And like, we walk into the bank. He gets the teller. It's like, don't deposit it yet. I want you to call and just make sure this money is real and it's going to deposit.
Nice.
And so the teller said, yeah. And so later that day, they said, yeah, I think you should quit and try to pursue this thing. And so they were fully behind me, which was really awesome.
You know what's really funny? There's this concept that when I'm working with clients or people who are getting started for the first time, I tell them what they need is what I call the shut up check. And that's what you had. You had that check that says to the back of your conscience, that quells all doubt, that tells your friends, look, I understand that you were told, and we were all told, go to school, get good grades, go down this path, etc. But look at this check. And when they see that check, everything else just is told to shut up. And then suddenly they're on board, and you got the shut up check. So that's awesome. Everybody's got that shut up check story.
Explaining it to them was doing no good at all. It was making it worse and worse before I talked. And we ended the conversation with the check.
Yeah. Just show them the check, and you're like, oh, okay, have fun then. Go for it. And I think every entrepreneur has a very, very similar story. The other thing that you said that I thought was very cool is the concept of walking in fear. I often tell people that, especially as an investor or a business owner, you're dealing with two emotions primarily. It's either fear or greed. You're definitely dealing with fear on the purchase or acquisition side, and you're dealing with greed when it comes time to sell. You're trying to sell something, and that's the overriding arcing emotion that you got to contend with. And you being a person who buys and sells businesses, I'm kind of curious to your perspective when it comes to that new person. They're looking to maybe buy a business. What are some of the common things that they go through, and what should they be doing so that they can overcome them?
Yeah, one of the things, and I thought 15 offline businesses and over 20 internet businesses at this point. But, talking, for me, it goes back to that very first deal again. One of the things that happened was the dot-com crash. And so I ended up selling that business for about a tenth of what it was worth at the height. And so for me, I was kind of, again, it was one of those things that was a blessing in disguise. I became very trigger happy. I lost that greed because, before that happened, I was, like, oh man, we're going to be able to sell this for so much money, and this is awesome and great and da da da. And then the crash came and I wasn't able to. And so the businesses that I bought thereafter, I became very trigger happy and probably on the opposite end of the spectrum. But as I work with clients that buy businesses really all over the country, you get a couple different types of people. You get some people that are just anxious to buy something. And so everything that looks decent at all, they're like, okay, let's buy it. All right, let's get it. And the toughest thing is kind of pulling people back. You know, the average person that looks for businesses closes on the business after going through their sixth deal in detail. And I like to tell people, you know, for me, I look at an average of 100 deals for every one that I buy. And it's similar. One of the places that I kind of built my strategy was actually from real estate. I bought a couple of Homevestor franchise units. And, you know, we grew those to buying and selling about 100 houses a year. And I realized it was actually the fourth business that I bought. And I didn't, before that point, see what I was doing as a thing. So I started to realize, wow, I can create some systems around what I was doing with businesses and apply that to buying and selling businesses the way that we're buying and selling real estate right now. So I sold those businesses and came back to the area of buying and selling businesses. So the average person comes in, they're really excited to buy a deal. After the sixth deal, they've got so much information in their head about these deals, and the human brain can only juggle so much information. And so they feel forced, like, okay, I think I like this one. And it ends up becoming a gut reaction. Like, okay, I'm just going to go with my gut, which is terrible. We don't even go in the grocery store and make decisions with our gut. We realize that that's a very bad idea, but that's the way most people buy businesses. And then on the sales side, you're absolutely right. You get people that have not really claimed all of the earnings that their business has made, and so their tax returns don't really show that they're making as much money as they really are. But then that greed comes in, and they're saying, "Oh, well, I'm really making this much, and I should make this much on the some of the business." Like, no, you actually got paid for that, for the money that you made there by not having to pay taxes on it. So you're not going to get paid twice. You chose not to pay the taxes. So now you're going to have to sell the business for a little bit more, but you didn't have to pay the taxes. That was the benefit to that.
Right. Totally understood. Now, and one of the things that I'm always wondering how other people handle is, especially when you're in a buy and sell situation, is, or you're looking at something for the first time, how on earth do you overcome the perpetual analysis paralysis?
Yeah.
I see. We've been talking to the same person. Sounds like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's getting, in this space, is getting a very clear picture of the thing that you want. One of the things that we've started to do is we'll walk through some testing with the seller and go through the buyer, and go through a deeper conversation of what do you want your life to look like? And once they kind of clue into that and they find a business that matches that, it becomes a lot easier to pull the trigger. But no matter what, I think some of it is definitely personality. And sometimes you'll get people, after they've missed out on a couple of really great deals, some people have to go through that in order to get to the point that they're going to pull the trigger. For me personally, even at this point, I can end up kind of overanalyzing a deal. So it just is a part of human nature. And that's after, I've probably I've bought 30 businesses and looked at a couple thousand. And so no matter what, that little inkling doesn't go away for some folks.
Yeah, totally understood. Now, today, though, when you go out to look at a deal or buy a business, it probably takes you no time whatsoever. You're like, yes, no, ooh, maybe. You're very, very quick at it, and it's an everyday thing. And one of the things that I often working towards helping people understand is what you do in terms of buying business. While it may sound like a unique thing, it's not an event. It's not like something you've got to overly prepare for in terms of, Christmas or Easter or a family gathering, etc. This isn't a family reunion. This is just what you do. It's what you do on a daily basis. And when you treat it that way, you can tend to remove or lessen some of the emotions that can, mess you up, to say the least. My question to you is, what do you think has been your secret into being able to remove emotions from your process to get to the point to where, you can transact and buy 30 businesses and look at thousands of deals and just go, this one's good, this one's not, but not be emotionally attached to the whole thing?
Are you tired of letting good cash flow generating ideas go to waste? Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready to apply for a complimentary, yes, that means free, one-on-one breakthrough session. Take action now. Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/ready. Before we get back to today's episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, your host, Jay Massey, has some important insights to share with you.
Okay, on this concept of it being an event, I want to make sure that I'm very, very clear and that I'm understood here and that you guys understand what I mean. Many times as we're going through, as you've heard me say, we build up so much anxiety around an event. I mean, if you're going to have a wedding, sure, okay, maybe that anxiety is there. But to get to the common place where, think about tying your shoe today. The first time you did it, sure, it was worthy of celebration. The first time, like right now, my son is potty training. The first time he does this, yes, it's celebration. But now it's, for those of you listening to me, most of you, I would say, don't celebrate going, yay, I went to the potty. That's kind of my point. And writing those offers and raising capital or talking to investors or holding a cash flow game. These are all just standard parts of things that allow your company to breathe, just in the same way that you inhale or exhale. That's not necessarily an event. Unfortunately, at times we begin to even take that for granted. My point is that you want to get to the point in your business where you've done the basic business disciplines that I've taught all the time without thinking that there's something special. You just want to go out there and make them happen every day. Then and only then do you get to the place where you hear that our guest is and where I know many of you would like to be. So let's see what else he has to share with us today.
So there are kind of two keys in this space. One is the ability to take your time. One of the things that we don't have to worry about in this space is somebody coming around and stealing a deal. So that takes a little bit of the anxiety away. I had a deal, quick story I'll tell is I had a deal I took a partner to. We're sitting down with the seller. He asked me to come to his house and talk about the offer, which I didn't really want to do, but he insisted. So we went to his house and he sat there as I told him kind of our thinking behind the offer. And then, I told him what the offer was and sat there in silence. And he kind of sat there, obviously steaming, not saying anything. And then finally says, this is just absolutely outrageous. I can't believe that you have the nerve to come in here and give me this offer. There's no way we'd ever accept anything like that, blah, 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 blah. So we get in the car. My partner's turns to me and is like, well, we need to find another deal. There's no way we're going to get this one. I was like, well, let's give him a little while. Sure enough, about a month later, he sends his wife because he couldn't bear coming back to us. And we end up buying that deal for less than what we had originally offered. So it definitely helps just not to have pressure. The other part, though, is you have to have a system that you trust. And at the end of the day, no matter how much time you have, if you don't have a system, you'll sit there wasting time and not be able to pull the trigger and not get your capital invested in earning money. And so over the years, we've built up a pretty intense process for offline businesses. It's a 34-step kind of analysis. For internet businesses, actually 92-step analysis that we walk through to decide, okay, is this a deal that we want to pull the trigger on, or that we want to pass on. And so that makes it a lot easier to kind of trust. And we've seen over and over and been able to evolve. One of the neat things and one of the big reasons that I have started to build a network of other business buyers all over the country is because of the feedback that we get in each step of our process. So we get feedback about what's going on with certain industries that, we may not be paying attention to, but, our client in Miami is doing deals in that space. And we start to build this database of just all kinds of interesting things that brokers are trying to pull and things that are going on where in certain industries. And that has helped out a lot as well.
Got it. Now, something you said that I just want to make sure I heard it right. You said for a brick and mortar offline business, you've got 34 steps, but for an online business, you have 92?
Yeah.
I thought online business was supposed to be simple, man. You just destroyed everybody's hope right there. They're just like, what? That's not simple. That's not easy. So what gives? Why 92 as opposed to 34?
Well, one of the things about internet businesses is that they are so different. Each one can be different. So you may have half of those that apply to an e-commerce business, and then the other half apply to a affiliate business. And so you just, obviously the things that we would do when it comes to inventory don't apply to a business that's just making money off drop shipping and affiliate type income. So no, I actually love internet businesses. We're doing a lot of internet deals, but you do have to be very, very careful. It's a lot easier to scam. It's tough to fake a retail store and fake customers that are coming in and all that stuff and see what's being rung up and see how much sales tax is paid, all those things. It's pretty easy to pop up a website and come up with some fake traffic and fake documentation and all of that. But even more than that is just the longevity. So what we try to focus on is this business going to be here 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? That's a little bit easier. The two offline businesses that I own right now, one is 33 years old. The other one is 24 years old. They're going to be here. They're not going anywhere.
Right.
I just bought a internet business that, even kind of stretching on one of my rules. I bought one that's only been in business 7 months, but it has some other things about it that we really love. And that's not a recommendation. You shouldn't buy internet business that's only 7 months old. But you got a lot more to consider. You've got a lot more things to figure out to see, is this thing going to be around than when you compare it to offline businesses where it's a lot easier.
Got it. So inside your 34-step process or your 92-step process, whether it's online or offline, what's the first thing you're looking at that says, ooh, this is worth considering and looking at?
Actually, I'll give a few of the first things because it's a combination. The very first thing is the multiple, because that's going to tell us how much money we're going to get as a return on this thing. So even more than the price, obviously we're going to look at the price. And I focus on deals that are $2 million or less because the multiple is a lot better than when you get above that and you're competing with larger private equity funds. So we look at price and make sure that's less than $2 million. Then we look at the multiple to see how much cash flow we're getting for the price that we're paying. So a multiple is basically the price divided by the cash flow, and the number of times the price goes into, or the cash flow goes into the price. That's going to be the multiple. We ideally want something with a 2 multiple. But deals are some deals are getting more expensive, and so we'll look at things that may be at 2.25 in that range.
Okay, and so just to give a tangible example, you're saying that if the business is being sold for say $500,000, and if it was to have a 2 multiple, what you're saying is you want the cash flow to be around $250,000 a year.
Exactly.
Got it.
Well, excellent. I'm sorry. So you said the price was how much?
$500,000?
Yeah, so $500,000. Ideally it would be 250 a year.
Got it. Perfect. Excellent. Now I got it. I understand. And I just want to make sure everyone, like I said, we leave nobody behind. So, what are some of the like big red flags that you've seen that go, oh my God, don't do this?
So one of the things is seller financing. Really, that is it. That's one of the great equalizers in this space. And one of the reasons that I love it, we loved when I owned the Homevestor franchise. We loved when we got a deal and we had somebody that was going to own and finance it for us, and we didn't have to go out and either tap a line or get financing from the bank and have to go through all of that. It wasn't going to show up on credit and all those benefits. And so one of the great things is that it's pretty much a standard in this space that the seller is going to have to offer some financing. And the reason is because that tells you that they have some faith in what they're selling you. The person that is trying to scam you, they want to get all cash. They don't want to have any financing. They don't want to have any long-term relationship. One of the keys, that's a huge red flag. If somebody doesn't want to offer us some substantial seller financing, we'll pass on that deal. We know that they are standing behind what they're telling us. If they're willing to have a lien against what they're telling us, which is this business is a great business, and so I don't mind taking it back if you don't pay me. That gives us a lot of faith to move forward in the deal. So that's the first kind of either red flag or green light to move forward.
Got it. So let's say if, someone's listening right now and they're trying to think about, this sounds great to them, being able to buy something that exists and in theory can kind of run in parallel with whatever else they have going on. Give us both extremes. What's been like the highest price, the lowest price, and more importantly, since if we're talking seller financing, what's been usually the highest amount of capital outlay required and some of the lowest amount of capital outlay required that you've seen in order to make this be successful for people?
Oh, so we've definitely had people that get 100% financing on these deals. I mean, even if you go back to the breakdown of my very first deal, to get a $70,000 business with $3,000. That's what's possible because you're building financing on top of some substantial. And really now, I'll negotiate for even more seller financing than I knew to do. I was happy with what they did back then. But we've got plenty of clients that are buying businesses with 100% financing. So it depends on the assets, it depends on the business and all of that. But you can definitely buy things without using cash. And then we have people they've got a substantial retirement. They've gone through all the madness and ups and downs with the market and just uncertainty. And bottom line is, like you broke down that multiple, if you can find a really good deal, go through 100 deals, filter out the very best deal and find something that you can buy for $500,000 and get $250,000 cash flow. There's nowhere really you can go and get that kind of cash flow and get a 50% return on your investment, and not have to come up with the whole $500,000. So there are definitely people that will pay cash for deals as well. But depending on the amount of cash that somebody has, what changes is the amount of work and effort and creativity you've got to use to go out and find a deal that matches where you are.
Got it. Makes perfect sense to me. Now, one of the things that I mentioned earlier was you have this concept or this item called a micro private equity fund. Is this something that you give your clients access to so that they can have some additional financing? Tell us more about what this means and how this functions for your people.
So what we do have a small fund, and we go out, we buy businesses, grow them, And sometimes we'll hold on to them, but often we're selling them. And so we do help people. Most of our clients are going out and they're creating their own fund. So it's not so much that I have investors that are invested in my fund, but clients are going out. We've just had a guy, and I get really excited. I love when I get clients to go and raise capital. The toughest thing to raising capital is that most people don't think they can do it. And so they just refuse to try. And, so I love when I have people that get over that fear and they start to go and talk to people. Because the truth is, people once they see the business, they see the details, they see the assets, they can kind of touch the tax returns and see the profit and loss. It's actually fairly simple to raise capital. So we actually help clients to go kind of create their own fund, raise some capital from people that know and like them. And that's how that works. So we have a fund, and then we have clients that go and raise capital for their own fund as well.
One of the things that you're bringing up right now is something. I get two questions all the time. It's, Jay, how do I find a deal? And then, Jay, how do I find the money? And I'm always answering those two questions constantly and telling people exactly what you just said. Raising capital is, yes, obviously it's something that we do from a real estate perspective. We do it all the time. And that's one of the things is, occasionally I get the question, how do I deal with the bank? And I actually have to respond and tell people, look, I actually don't know how to deal with the bank. I've never used the bank. That's not part of our business model. I know how to raise capital. So it's interesting, to hear you say the same principles and the same things are required, whether it's a business. And this is that you just underscore the point that I've been hoping other people hear, is that real estate is just another form of doing business. It's not wholly different than any other business out there. It's just that our customer, has different expectations, just like any other customer has a different expectation of what the product or service should be based upon all their prior experiences, and because they've had a lot of experience with a lot of different real estate. So, what do you think are some of the, say, I'll call them characteristics of those who are most likely to experience success when it comes to buying a business?
I think it's because there are so many different types of businesses out there. There are businesses for the quiet accountant who doesn't want to talk to people, or the guy who wants to sit in the back and operate in operations and come up with systems and that kind of thing. And it's more about matching the person with that deal. So we had a business that we had a lady up in Pittsburgh buy. She was on maternity leave and only had a few months till she had to go back to a job that required her to travel, and was going to make her be away from her baby every week, which was just, something she did not want to deal with. And so we ended up matching her with a deal. She had a lot of, she was a consultant and had a lot of marketing experience, but we matched her with a deal that was run by some programmers that built an amazing software and had built such a great software that they just attracted people to it. They never had to do marketing because everybody in the industry they were in talked about how great their software was. So they literally had built a fairly big business, but it never done any marketing. So that was the perfect match for her and replaced her six-figure income. But for another person, it would be the guy who's the marketer and is pulling in business, but, got terrible customer service, terrible follow-up, terrible systems, and all of that. And so that it allows you to kind of match the right business to that person's personality and skill set.
What's funny is that there's a concept that I call investor identity, and that you're saying the same thing just as it relates to businesses, because one of the things that I strongly believe is there's no such thing as a problem property. There's tons of problem owners, and they had different expectations going in. And, you had the money, but you bought low end property and you had high end expectations. And that's part of the problem. And because you don't know how to serve that customer the way that they hope to be served or deserve to be served, then that's why you're experiencing the frustrations with your business. And I love your approach. Because that, as I say, the alignment avoids ailments later. And you have the ability to make sure that things are going to go in the right direction for the longest period of time. Now, I know that you have a book out there, and I'm guessing that if I was to go out and pick up that book, you'd be able to walk me through a process to be able to purchase my first business.
Absolutely. So the book is called The Ace Formula. And it walks through some of the deals that I've done, what we've learned from those deals, and kind of it gets that foundation of knowledge so that you can go in, talk to a seller, figure out what's going on, figure out the opportunity. One of the biggest things with businesses and what's happening in the market right now is there's 2 million baby boomers that are entrepreneurs and are business owners that are going to have to sell their business in the next 5 to 10 years. And a lot of these businesses have what I call low-hanging fruit. So, I talk about the 2 businesses that I own that are older. One of them, when I bought it 2 years ago, this is 2012, he didn't have a website. This is a $500,000 business. It's doing well. It's been in business 33 years. And he, didn't have a website. So he didn't have, of course, any of the other like social media or customer database of past customers or any of those simple things. So it was just really easy. And then, we had another deal that where they did have a customer database. They had a database of 14,000 past customers. And I asked them how often they emailed or contacted them in any way. And they said, well, we don't. And I was like, well, yeah. So when was the last time you did? And I was like, well, we don't. And they had never contacted them once. So you want to be able to go in, see the opportunity, and make sure that you understand what's going on in the business so that you can talk intelligently with the seller and find those hidden gems. Nice.
That's it wouldn't be so funny if it wasn't so true. I mean, I try to tell people I didn't have a website till last year, and I didn't have one. So we never took the time to build any of those things. We never took the time to build a database. And I ran across this book, The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. And basically it talked about the fact that, at any given time, there's probably only 3% of the people that you are talking to that are actually in a position and ready to take advantage of your product and service. Which meant that 97% could become ready at some point in time down the line. But because we didn't build a database, because I didn't do those things, those were all individuals we would never ever be able to do business with, and more importantly, couldn't do multiple transactions with. And it got me to thinking that basically, then, what this is also saying is that what we have built has been built by only dealing with the top 3% who were ready at the moment. Oh my goodness, what could we have possibly have built if I actually started with a database from a beginning? And the reason I'm sharing this is because I want people to understand that you may hear Ace say something like that simple thing of, hey, it's obvious. Every business owner is going to contact their customers. Every business owner these days is going to build a customer database. What do you mean you don't have a social media presence or a website? I mean, we're still learning this social media thing. We still don't do it well. We're looking for those resources. We'll attract them, I'm sure, in time. The point is, I don't want anyone thinking that it can't be that obvious. And the answer is, it is that obvious.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. And it shocks people all the time when they start to talk to people like, man, why doesn't he do this? And why doesn't he do that? And it seems like they would just go out and build a site, but They don't. And that's just the facts of what's out there.
Indeed. I definitely appreciate that. Now, for those who have been listening this particular episode, I'm curious, I know there's a number of people, they're like, man, well, maybe my retirement plan, or maybe I can do this and maybe I can do that. Maybe, how can they get in contact with you and get a little deeper to understand if maybe maybe buying a business and existing something online or offline is the way to go for them? What's the best way for us to get more of you?
Yeah, well, a few different ways. One is we have a website. It's acechapman.com. I am on Twitter, and it's @AceChapman. But feel free. I mean, when people have questions, I get a lot of emails, and I enjoy what I do. So I enjoy responding to people. And so people can reach out directly to me at acechapman.com.
Excellent. And what one last thing would you like to share with someone who's considering for the first time putting on their own superhero outfit and becoming that entrepreneur?
The biggest thing, and one of the reasons I do podcasts and share this message, is to think about buying a business instead of starting from scratch. And even with your kids and just people that you're having conversations with. One of the things that I am interested in doing in my lifetime is to make that transition from everybody thinking about entrepreneurship as this risky thing where I've got to go out and take a risk where I've got a 90% chance of failing when I start something from scratch, and transitioning to the lesser discussed possibility of buying a business where you've got an 85% chance to succeed. And so it's a lot easier to squeeze into the 85% success rate than it is the 10% success rate. So that would be my word to the future entrepreneur out there.
Excellent. Well, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to invest here with the Cashflow Diary audience, and I hope we'll able to be able to get you a return on this invested time here today.
Great. Thanks.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is? It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. You've got two things. You can go pick up the ACE formula. It's in Amazon. Read the book. Do what it says. Don't just read the book and go, ooh, that it was great information. Read the book and take action as you go, chapter by chapter. Write down what you're going to do differently. Get on Twitter. Send them an email. Make it happen. There's no time other than now o'clock, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Until next time.